Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome to the second installment of Wednesday's Whiskey and Wisdom with myself, Joe Slee. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone for your positive responses to my first video. I didn't think it actually go so well as it did. Clearly there's a demand for good whiskey reviews and wisdom in these days of isolation. We're sort of getting through all our Netflix and things too quick, maybe, I don't know. As a way of saying thank you, I've decided today to do a double feature. We've got two lovely whiskies to review for you. So the first I've got, if you remember last week I was talking about the different areas of Scotland. This week I've got one from the Isle of Islay. So this is probably a most typical Islay type Scotch whiskey. I've got the Lagavulin, I think that's how you pronounce it, Lagavulin, or them weird Scottish names. And this is one of them fancy bottles I talked about. This one is a 16-year-old aged Scotch. Now I think this one set me back around $100. But it is worth every cent, as I've mentioned before. Some of them are. Now this one it's quite a very peaty, sort of smoky, quite intense type flavours, these ones. And that's very typical of your Islay whiskies. They all taste very similar. They're all sort of got that peaty, sort of by the sea, just an island. You just imagine old Scottish guys making this kind of whiskey day in, day out. That's all they do, essentially. Again, this one's got quite a nice old style bottle. Got the cork, which I love. Just makes the feel for the bottle. You may recognise this whiskey as the one that, if you're familiar with the TV show Parks and Rec, this is the whiskey that Ron Swanson drinks pretty much every day. And for good cause, it's really quite nice. I was not introduced to it through the TV show, actually. I have a much more interesting story. I was visiting friends while I was overseas, and I caught up with one particular friend who I hadn't seen in a while over there. And they'd recently got engaged to a Scotsman. And so I went over to their place for a small dinner party one evening, and I was introduced to this guy. Anyway, as dinner parties go, you sort of have a few drinks, get along the way, and sometime in the evening he pulls out a bottle of Lagavulin, and we pretty much finished the whole thing together. And that was my first experience of this particular whiskey. And it was quite a memorable night, even though I probably can't remember half of it. Yeah, now this, as I said, this whiskey, I'll give you a taste here. That's grand. That's it is quite strong. It's like a very peaty, as I mentioned, got quite intense, quite smoky flavors, but it's that after finish, that lingering taste in your mouth. It's really quite nice and fresh. And that's the thing that I quite love about this whiskey. Like, there is the 12-year variant, which is quite nice as well. But I do like the 16-year-old. This is the one that I was introduced to. And this is the one that I sort of enjoy. That bottle sort of lasted me the last couple of years. You only have a glass every now and again as a sort of a winter warmer. It sort of feeds the soul, I guess. It sort of gets right down to your bones. Yeah, so that's probably all I can say on that one. I'll give you a quick little trick here, but if you like switching between whiskies, if you have any leftover Easter chocolates, chocolate is a great way to cleanse the palate between whiskies. You can sort of, if you're going from differences, which I am, I'm just going to have a little bit of chocolate here, a bit of leftovers. Yum. I think I learned that trick in Coro at the whiskey distillery and chocolate factory there. They often serve chocolate in between their whiskey tastings, which is probably a good marketing tool as well. So this second whiskey I've got, comes courtesy of a recommendation from my sister-in-law. This is Powers Whiskey, Powers Gold Label. Now this is an Irish whiskey. This is a lot different to your Scottish whiskies. Irish whiskies tend to be quite smooth tasting. If you're familiar with like Jameson's probably a good example. It's probably the most well-known Irish whiskey. Powers is a little different though. That's sort of probably not as well known as Jameson, but Powers is actually one of the first distilleries in Ireland. It's one of the first to bottle their own whiskies, at least. They yeah, back in the old days, they used to ship the whiskies to the different inns and then they'd bottle them from there. But Powers was one of the first distilleries to bottle their own whiskey, and they used to put a little gold label on it, hence why it's called Powers Gold Label. Yeah, this whiskey, so this is much like most Irish whiskies. This one's very smooth, very easy to drink. Wow, that's actually a really nice follow-up to that quite intense Lagavulin. I could probably drink a whole bottle of that and be quite a happy man. Yeah, well, it's even better having a double feature. I get to try two for you. That's great. That being, I don't actually know how much Powers is worth, to be honest. That's I scabbed this bottle off my sister, who got it from duty free on her way back from Ireland a couple of years ago. So this bottle's been in the family for a couple of years, not being drinking, and I managed to scab half or whatever's left of it to do this little video for you. Anyway, that being done, I thought I'd go on to the wisdom side of things for this week. I thought I'd like to share a little story I had a few months ago while I was overseas on my honeymoon with my lovely wife. We happened to be in we were visiting Budapest, for starters, the nice, lovely city of Budapest. We stopped into this nice little old church. It was under construction, this church particularly, just sort of different from a lot of the city. A lot of the city's all fixed up and ready to go. This church was under construction. We went in. It was still, yeah, very beautiful inside. Everything was still going ahead. There's a few scaffolds up in the main sanctuary, but we were allowed to go downstairs to a little chapel. They invited us, the curators that were there, they said, oh, go downstairs. And we went down there. It was a lovely little chapel there. We went down, said a few prayers down there, and as I do, my eyes start to wander around. I sort of had a look, and I noticed that the structure of the place was built using the sort of mismatched stones, or like odd bits of rubble and stones. And I thought that was a bit odd. It was kind of like, you know, sort of what kind of bricks did they use here? Anyway, I sort of was wandering around and I came across a plaque that was in English, which is very helpful for me, sort of not speaking much Hungarian. Anyway, I read the plaque and it sort of stated that this particular church, I can't for the life of me think of the name of the place now, but this particular church was destroyed during World War II, and it had been essentially rebuilt using the rubble from the bombed church. And I sort of think, well, that sort of struck me a little bit, you know, like maybe that's kind of what like real life is. You know, sometimes we do get knocked down. We do get destroyed ourselves, you know, our psyches or our human self. We get destroyed. We become heaps of rubble. But it's from this rubble that we can essentially rebuild and make ourselves anew again. You know, like this church that sort of, it was grand. It was a great place to visit. I'd go back there for sure. But yeah, it's been rebuilt from the rubble. And I just thought that was a great analogy or a metaphor for the human condition. I think, you know, like we all go through our struggles in our times, and we shouldn't be disheartened. Like it's not the end of the struggles is not the end goal. We might be destroyed, but from these rubble, we can rebuild ourselves to a new version of ourselves, and we can, you know, use some of that's been destroyed. Yeah, anyway, I hope that sort of sticks with you. That's very good. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week. We'll come along. Maybe we'll do 3 whiskies for the 3rd episode if these get a good enough reaction. Thank you again for coming along and listening in. We'll do another one of these next week. It's always a good excuse for me to get pissed on a Wednesday night. I don't mind. You don't mind. It's a win-win. All good. Stay safe, everyone, and enjoy yourselves. Have a good weekend. Have a good whiskey.